How do you characterize the status of development in New Rochelle today?
We're enjoying unprecedented success. 32 projects approved, 10 completed, 11 under construction, with more that are going to begin soon. They're leasing up ahead of expectations. It really validates the hopes and expectations that the city had when we adopted our downtown framework in 2015, and it positions New Rochelle as a regional leader in smart, sustainable growth.
New Rochelle has a downtown, but it also has a waterfront area. What is going to be happening at the waterfront?
We recently approved new zoning for the Echo Bay waterfront, which we hope will unlock the potential of that site. This is a point at which US 1 comes extremely close to the Long Island Sound shore, and yet as long as I've been alive, it has been contaminated and completely inaccessible. We've relocated our Public Works Operations Center from that site. We've identified a developer who will work with us to create a mixed-use project with continuous public access to the Long Island Sound. That's going to be very valuable in and of itself. It'll also create a synergy between the downtown and the waterfront for the first time and really strengthen both locations.
Speaking of developers, you had selected RXR as the master developer for downtown. In retrospect, is that a good technique to use? Would you recommend that to other cities?
The relationship with RXR has been extremely positive and certainly beneficial to New Rochelle. They worked with us to establish the overall parameters for our downtown redevelopment. Their involvement here sent a signal to the rest of the marketplace that New Rochelle was a good place to do business, and they're able to undertake catalytic investments on the properties that they were assigned and exclusive to. At the same time, I want to stress that RXR is one of many developers that are playing in our sandbox, and in effect, RXR's contributions to the overall framework helps to subsidize and facilitate investment from other parties.
What do you see about the concept transit-oriented development? It has been hot for a long time, but some cities seem to be shying away slightly.
I think transit-oriented development is absolutely critical to our future. On the one hand, it is responsive to the kinds of lifestyles that the younger generation and future generations expect. Less dependency on the car, ability to obtain goods and services nearby by walking out your door. It's also important from a global perspective because reducing our dependency on automobile traffic, having lower energy consumption for heating and cooling, is really a vital part of any kind of coherent, effective climate action strategy. So I think what we're embracing in New Rochelle and what other transit-served communities are embracing is vitally important from a local, regional, and even global perspective.
Speaking of transit, Metro North is now starting to work on its plan to bring commuter service into Grand Central Station, as well as Penn Station in Manhattan. New Rochelle is going to be kind of at the hub of this and benefit. Describe that for us.
So Penn Access will link Metro North's New Haven line directly into Penn Station for the first time, using the rail line that is currently employed by Amtrak. So much of the infrastructure is already there. It'll also include 4 new commuter stations in the Bronx. What's particularly significant to New Rochelle is that the line between Grand Central and Penn Station splits just south of New Rochelle Station. So when this is completed, we will be the closest station to Manhattan with direct service to both the east and west side. That's a major selling point for both commuters and reverse commuters, and it'll help position New Rochelle as a place with unparalleled transit access to the region.
As all of this development has been taking place, what in general have you and your administration been doing to listen to residents, to listen to how they feel, what they're saying, and what have you done to promote transparency for your administration?
Well, first of all, people are not shy about expressing their opinions in New Rochelle. Not a day goes by that I don't hear from residents through a phone call or an email or participation in a public hearing or a neighborhood meeting. And I value that input. I think anyone in public life who takes their responsibilities seriously always needs to be listening, always needs to be open to the possibility of course correction, always wants to absorb good ideas and act upon them. At the same time, sometimes leadership involves doing what you believe is right and then being held accountable for the outcome of your actions. So I think most people in public life establish a balance between those two. in terms of how we can improve transparency and public involvement in decision making, I'd point to one really exciting initiative that we're undertaking with assistance from Bloomberg Philanthropies. We received a $1 million grant to develop something called NRVR, which is an augmented reality and virtual reality app that will enable members of the community to visualize new public spaces, new development, and provide us with input in a way that is constructive, that is fun, that is sort of elevated from the dry exercise of a public meeting, and really lets people describe in more visual terms what it is they want to see in the growth and evolution of their own community. So we're looking not just to sort of listen to the public, which is important in and of itself, but also to create new platforms and new opportunities for the public to contribute in meaningful ways.
Some political observers had suggested that your overwhelming win last time around was really an endorsement, a referendum on the development that has taken place in New Rochelle, and this was the New Rochelle residents showing their approval of that. Is that the way you interpreted it?
I think there's some truth to that. It's maybe a little bit reductive to assume that the outcome of an election is attributable to just one factor. Every voter weighs multiple things when they go into the booth. But it is certainly true that I have been very clear in all of my campaigns that downtown development is my priority, and it's the thing that I want to accomplish. And voters, I'm grateful to say, have returned me to office understanding that that is my platform. And so when I work to pursue this objective with colleagues on the City Council, for whom I'm very, very grateful, and with partners in our city administration, I feel as though I'm not only doing the right thing for New Rochelle, I'm also honoring the commitments and obligations that I made to the people who elected me.
Generally speaking, cities view development as being beneficial for holding down taxes and keeping the city in a strong financial position. Has that been the case in New Rochelle?
It has absolutely been the case for New Rochelle. Downtown development is a huge financial winner for the city government and for the school district. Just to put a little bit of detail on that statement, the projects that have been approved, if you look at the taxes generated historically and compare it to what will be generated over the next 20 years and over the next 40 years, over the next 20 years, it's a $180 million increase in tax generation. And over the subsequent 20 years, it's a $500 million escalation in tax generation. So our fiscal bottom line, the health of taxpayers who are already here, will be greatly improved by the growth that's occurring. And we were very careful to assure ourselves of that fact when we adopted the downtown framework, when we created a standardized schedule for tax benefits. We wanted to be sure that both in terms of annual revenue generation and in terms of one-time payments to deal with infrastructure and capital needs, that taxpayers came out ahead. And sure enough, that's been the case.
What is your message about New Rochelle for prospective residents, people who are looking at the city and saying, well, maybe we do want to live there, maybe we don't, I don't know, and also for businesses?
So our tagline is ideally yours, and we mean it in the sense that this is a place which is welcoming to people of every tradition, every circumstance, every experience, where people will be welcomed and encouraged to be their best and to pursue their own dreams. And that is not true of every community, but it is really woven into the DNA, into the fabric of New Rochelle. I'd also say that the upside potential in New Rochelle is enormous. We're a growth stock. You can see because of the changes that are occurring in the downtown area, our economy is improving, access to goods and services are improving, employment opportunities are improving. So someone who chooses either to invest in a home or invest in a business right now will be getting in at a time when, again, the upside potential is very, very high. So both in terms of the community character, which is something that's important to me growing up here, raising my own kids here, and in terms of an economic calculus, I would certainly encourage people to look at New Rochelle very seriously.
What have you done in the way of affordable housing here, and how has that been received in the community?
Affordable housing is very important to us. New Rochelle is socioeconomically diverse. That is a characteristic that we are eager to preserve. And so in the context of downtown development, we have required that a minimum of 10% of new units be set aside at below market rates. We actually recently tightened up our affordable housing policy to provide for a deeper level of affordability as well as a spectrum of price points. Of the roughly 7,000 units that have been approved, more than 1,000 will be affordable. So we're actually running ahead of that 10% benchmark. And so even though the ratio of market rate to affordable apartments will shift towards market, by design, we need that disposable income to create a robust demand for goods and services and stimulate the business climate. In absolute numbers, there will be many more affordable units when all this development is done than there are today. And that bodes well for our ability to continue welcoming people of different circumstances and giving them a realistic opportunity to find a home in New Rochelle.
And what about New Rochelle as a green city, both environmentally and offering people something other than pavement to look at?
Enormously important that, particularly at a time of growth, that we pair it with open space and amenities. I heard the great line, density plus amenity equals community. Density without amenity is congestion. And so we want to make sure that there are open spaces. We already spoke about one of those. The waterfront will be a huge new public park that will create shoreline access for everyone in New Rochelle, but within walking distance of the downtown. Another that I'd mention is the Link. This is the repurposing of Memorial Highway, an overbuilt road that kind of tapers off into local streets that were never designed to carry a huge amount of traffic. And we're creating a linear park that will connect the downtown to the Lincoln Avenue corridor. So this will be, again, a significant open space amenity for thousands of residents who live within walking distance. It will also connect a neighborhood that has historically been marginalized, connect that neighborhood to employment and transit opportunities that are in the downtown core. More broadly, sustainability and environmental protection have been core values of the city for quite a long time. We adopted a sustainability plan about 10 years ago, which is getting a comprehensive refresh. And in the context of updating our downtown zoning, we really leaned into environmental principles. We now require LEED Silver equivalency in terms of building design. We create an opportunity to undertake off-site climate justice improvements, which will enable us to green neighborhoods that have a lot of hardscape today and suffer from the urban heat island effect. So we really want to make sure that the environment is not just a rhetorical rallying cry for us, but that in tangible, practical ways, we're making New Rochelle a greener community.
When you think back on your time in office, what pops out to you as the major accomplishments?
Well, certainly what we've been discussing throughout this interview, downtown development, has been front and center. And it is truly thrilling to see our plans come to fruition through the construction that is occurring today and imagining the life that is going to flow into our city over many years. In addition to that, I'd say that our long-term capital budget, which reflects historic investments in infrastructure needs, that's something that I advocated for very, very strongly. And I think it's enabled us to make strategic investments in New Rochelle's future. I'm enormously proud of the grants that we've been able to secure, a RAISE grant from the federal government, the Downtown Revitalization Initiative from New York State, the $1 million Bloomberg Philanthropies grant that I mentioned earlier, outside resources that are not only enabling us to do good things, but reflect kind of a validation from third parties that we're on the right track in New Rochelle and there's a reason to invest in this community. I'd mention again the sustainability plan that helped embed sustainability more fully into the culture of the city government and made it a more substantial metric for policymaking.
If you had a crystal ball, what would you like to see in that for New Rochelle's future?
Well, I'd like us first to preserve the qualities that already make New Rochelle special. Talented, extraordinarily diverse population, neighborhoods that are charming and historic, location and transit assets that are second to none. And at the same time, I'd like to see us fully embrace the future that we're building today. For all the changes that are occurring in the downtown, it's still a work in progress. The positive impact has not been fully felt in terms of ground level activity, in terms of all the buildings being filled. in terms of all the infrastructure and open space work that I described. So what I see in the future is all of those things coming to fruition, and the benefits being enjoyed fully by residents who are here today, residents who will join us tomorrow, people throughout the region who will increasingly see New Rochelle as a model community that shines a light and a path forward for many others throughout America.